Hello, everyone. Are you ready? I'm ready. I'm excited for this. This is the newest episode starring one of our, I think this is going to be a really, really great episode. And you guys will see why. He's involved in some crazy things that you're just not expecting, especially around our community. And I'm gonna shed the light on that here a little bit. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for the one and only Mr. Rodney Perez.
Thank you. Thank you for having me in today.
Oh, well, we appreciate you coming on this. Let me just do a quick introduction so people know who you are. And correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't actually, we've never met before until like right before he walked in here. We did some hellos. We have very little interaction because I like to keep things I like to be surprised. But I did do a little homework before I had him on. I wanted to make sure I understood who he was, and this is who I correct me if I'm wrong. This is my attempt at journalistic skills. You are the VP of the Chicago, Illinois chapter at the United Patriots of America. You are a Peru mayor candidate. You are a firefighter, and you run Operation Promises, which is keeps kids in high school away from drinking and driving and things like that. Am I right so far?
Pretty much. Retired firefighter.
Yeah.
And Operation Promise was something that I did for a few years while I was on the fire department.
Okay.
And also started an organization called Operation Promise Incorporated. So those were all correct, but it's more former than it is current.
Well, that's just kind of maybe a resume then.
Sure.
But you're a father?
Yes.
And then a husband?
Yes.
Okay, and so those are important for the resume too, I would think.
And grandfather.
And grandfather.
Oh, 5.
Okay. Wow, congratulations,
yes,
sir. You look a little young to be a grandfather.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
It just could be the sunglasses.
Yeah, I think that's what it is.
So resumes out there a little bit, but the thing that most interested me when someone reached out to me, and that's how I'm meeting all these people. People are just suggesting they watch this podcast and they get ideas on who they think would be good, and I think they would be good too. And when I found out that you were the VP of the Patriots for America, which, to bring clarity to that, can you help explain what that is? Because it sounds patriotic, but it's actually one of those militia. I think it's kind of like a militia, isn't it?
Correct.
I'll let you do it.
Sure, absolutely. So Patriots for America Militia. Now, when people hear the word militia, they're kind of like, they're thinking guns and
guerrilla warfare,
and they're thinking like we want to go after and take over government, right?
Yeah.
And unfortunately, there are some militias out there over the years that were training to, take on government if they ever, come to take guns and stuff like that. But that's completely different than what we do. We are a militia. We are the type of organization we are faith-based, right? We're a 501c.
Okay.
Everything that we do is by law. We don't do anything against the law. Mm-hmm. Of course, we train with guns. We have that constitutional freedom to own guns, and the things that we do, we need to protect ourselves. But the last thing that we ever plan on doing or train to do is to take on government, right?
Right.
This is about the fight for children, is what it is.
And that's specifically kind of more what you guys are aimed towards?
Absolutely.
So you guys are actually going to the border, then down in Texas and stuff? Or,
yes.
So this is like you guys are proactively not just doing things here in your own community, but you're actually making trips. Are you like a part of like missions? Are you interacting with a lot of the? Because I don't know if you've been watching the news lately, but there's a kind of a crisis going on down
absolutely.
there. With this stuff going on right now, are you guys doing and involved in anything right now? Doing stuff down there? Yeah.
So let me start from the beginning. Okay.
Yes.
So Sam Hall
from the beginning, sir.
Sam Hall is from Texas.
He
is the founder and president of
it.
Patriots for America Militia. So he actually started the rescue of children being exploited, kidnapped, probably over 10 years ago.
Okay.
And then when all this came about with Antifa and basically right after George Floyd, right? And after COVID.
Yeah.
Antifa and Black Lives Matter, they were doing a lot of protests.
Mm-hmm.
So Sam Hall and the group at that time they were going and defending patriots, right?
So it started kind of like a politically motivated Because there was a lot. You're right. This is a multifaceted summer of love, like of everything that was going on, whether it's Antifa or BLM or just keep going COVID. Eventually, all of it was going on at the same time. So we were having freedom of speech issues as well. So you're saying it started off kind of like the militia of defending rights or freedoms, or just like maintaining peace control.
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely. What is it? Citizen soldiers? I don't know. That's kind of the National Guard. I don't know.
It was more like, police officers were being attacked.
Yeah.
They were. There was a lot of protesters, a lot of patriots going to
guard businesses.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So, like I said, though, Sam Hall and Patriots for America started out with missing and exploited children, but then 2020 comes along, 2020 comes along.
Okay, I see the shit there.
And that's where they started doing that.
Okay.
And then the border crisis, right?
Yeah.
And then Joe Biden came in, started changing some things with the border, and things in Texas started becoming totally chaotic.
Mm-hmm.
And where the missing and exploited children come along are the amount of the children are coming across that are unsupervised. They're being smuggled across by cartels, coyotes, and when they get here, they are being basically put off into the trafficking business, right? And the cartels are basically in charge of that. They are taking our children and exploiting them here in America.
Mm-hmm.
So when the border crisis started, what happened was I was at home watching Fox News, and I saw in Kinney County, Sheriff Coe was on there, and there was an interview with Sam Hall and Fox News about the border crisis. Sheriff Coe at that time was looking for patriots to come down and help because they were so overwhelmed at this time. They didn't have enough manpower to secure the border. So I'm watching this, and I seen Sam Hall talking about his Patriots for America, and it's something that I'm really interested in, right? All these children are being taken across and being exploited and being trafficked and being sexually abused. I wanted to take part of that. I wanted to be involved. And so I contacted Sam Hall after I watched that Fox News broadcast, sent him an email. He called me. He gave me an interview. He vetted me, did a background check, and then I went down there for one of their rotations. That's what they call it, a rotation. So I went down there, packed my bags. Everything's expenses are on my own, right? I pay for everything on my own. My travel, I rent a car because I don't want to take my personal vehicle down there because they could easily
identify me, right? There's a lot going on down there you don't want to bring back home.
I put in about $1,000 into going down there out of my own pocket, which is completely fine with me because there's something that we need to do as individuals and we the people, right? We need to. When police officers are overwhelmed and they have so much going on and they can't do it, who else is going to do it? We have to stand there and we have to put boots on the ground.
Were you welcomed?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, I was just curious.
I'll get it. Yeah, so I'll get into that. So I went down there for that rotation and met Sheriff Coe.
Okay.
We had a meeting with Sheriff Coe and the National Guard, Texas National Guard, Border Patrol, and Border Patrol and the Sheriff's Department. We don't work with them on an unofficial capacity. We do, right?
Okay. So
we go down there, we patrol the border, and what's neat is we're fully armed. We have AR-15s, sidearm. We have, we wear our vests, and we go down to the border. And cartels, they see us down there, right?
Yeah.
We're not law enforcement. We can't detain. We can't arrest. But basically, we're a deterrent. So when we have a group of 12 of us at the border, and they see us from across the river in Eagle Pass, Texas.
Wow, okay.
They end up either going to another location and crossing, or they don't want confrontations with us just as much as we don't want any confrontations with them. So basically, at that point, we're just a deterrent. But it got to the point to where the migrants that were coming across the river, which is only waist high, you see them carrying children across, groups of 30 or 40. In fact, that weekend that I was down there, they had a group of about 40 coming across. And I've got a live video on that. I'm like, you know what? The people back here in Illinois don't realize what's happening because the left-wing media out there, they're not sharing and giving the facts and the true details of what's actually taking place at the border. So I hit my Facebook Live, and I recorded this thing. I had my I was all strapped up. I had my phone in my hand, and I've never done this before, right? So I hit live on Facebook to show everything, because you can't edit. When you're Facebook Live, there's no editing, right?
Yeah, live is dangerous.
Yeah. So I had this thing with me the whole time, and we go down into the brush, and it's big, overgrown cane, and you know, it's pretty crazy going down in there. I mean, it right on the river, it's just overgrown brush and cane, and it's you know, you get cut up pretty good. And so cute kitty, she wants to get into my paperwork. So they came across, and they were collapsing once they got here. Little babies, infants, 3-4-year-old boys, girls, 5, 6, 7 years old. And the first thing first is, like, I've had people on Facebook saying, "Why don't you boot their, you know, arses back to across the border?" Why don't you kick
like
them
they're
back?
so wrapped up in a political movement. And listen, I'm all for calling it a crisis too. It is a crisis. And what's happening is not. It's illegal. But those are still humans.
Yes,
those are still children.
Yep.
Those are still children coming across that. Like, I'm not okay with the standard and how we've allowed this to happen, but I hear you. Yep. Those are people.
We are the hands and feet of Christ.
Amen.
Right? Humanitarian efforts come first. So when they come across, it's not like we are like, okay, we're detaining you, you're staying here, because we can't detain. Mm-hmm. We have bottles of water. We have backpacks with water. We have backpacks of food, because a lot of these coming across the border haven't had any food or water in days, weeks. They're coming from
it's nightmare conditions.
Yep.
People,
Cuba.
Yep. They're not. It's not. Yes, it ain't. There are people that are coming from other countries, and they're just flying in, and then they're just coming up through the border. But there's other people that are going quite through it, and I feel like I don't feel like I'm an expert in this, but I do feel like I'm pretty informed compared to, I guess, the regular. Like you said, you went live because you felt like people back in Illinois didn't even know about it. They wouldn't even believe it. I was raised as a military brat. We lived all over the world, moving every 2 to 3 years of our lives, military bases, civilians, all of it, and culture. I just feel like maybe that helps play a part where I try to stay not just plugged into local news. I love local community stuff, especially because it was something I didn't really have growing up. But I'm big on international news and what's going on, such as like our borders. And when I found out, like, I'm like, wait, there's this guy who lives in Peru who's involved in the Chicago Patriots for America militia that's going down to the border that's happening right now. I got to get this guy in the podcast.
And you know, I'm glad you did, because there's no other really means of way of me communicating unless on Facebook, right?
Social media.
There's really no news media out there, even our local radio stations and our local newspapers. They try to stay away from this stuff. They don't want to give out that information, what's really happening. So that's why we live record everything. We have body cameras, everything's recorded. So when I was down at the border and they were coming across, you see these women that are coming across, and they just collapse. They collapse right when they get onto American soil. We give them water. We give them aid. In fact, I'll tell you a story about a little girl. Her name is Sophia. She, I believe, 6 years old. And she came across with her father, mother, and little brother. Mm-hmm. And I've got photos. I've got videos of when they got here. The little girl, what happened was she was standing with a bunch of migrants standing on there was probably over 100 of them, right? Yeah. Sam Hall spotted the little girl standing by herself, and he walked up to her, because that's the first thing that we do. We want to make sure the children are safe, because so many people want to get their hands on these little children and take them, and they molest them. They do all kinds of crazy and evil things to these children. And so at that time when Sam Hall was talking to her, a gentleman came up to try to take this little girl. Well, Sam didn't let her go. So we were waiting for Border Patrol. And a lot of times they are so understaffed, there isn't Border Patrol, law enforcement anywhere for miles, right? So we went to go look for her father. His name was Orlando. Mm-hmm. So we looked for the father and the mother. And some team members found the father a little bit ways down the way, right? His name was Orlando. He was very thankful. We got video and photos of this, right? So Orlando was very happy. He was with the little boy, and he was praising the Lord, thanking God that we found his daughter and got him. He took 20 steps and he hit the ground. We proceeded to give him CPR. Mm-hmm. We called law enforcement to try to get some medical aid to him right away, and unfortunately, we lost her father. during
smokes.
that. And we tried for until they got there to give it over to EMS, but we called the ambulance. But of course, this Eagle passes so many miles and the border is so many miles that sometimes it takes them a good hour just to get to us. And so when Sam Hall went back up to the girl to tell her, we've got to get you to Border Patrol, he carried her on her back. And I don't know if you saw any photos with that yet. He carried her on her back for about a mile until he was able to get to Border Patrol. And it just, we see things. There's another case where 24-year-old girl and her boyfriend came across the stories that we heard that she had went through from Colombia. She was molested by police officers, cartels, coyotes, sexually abused. He was physically abused. And this happens along their journey. This isn't just her and what happens to him. This happens to majority of all girls and women when they leave their homeland to come here. They take birth control. They try to do everything because they know that somewhere along the pathway they're going to get raped and abused. And it happens all the time, nonstop. And that's the problem is. The Secretary of Defense, or Secretary Mayorkas, right? He's the Homeland Security. The problem with him, he needs to be fired. He needs to lose his job because the border is so out of control, and he doesn't realize what's happening. He doesn't want it. It's a whole political.
Do you think he doesn't realize it?
He knows. Okay. He knows.
I was just curious if he really thought that.
Absolutely.
I was like, I don't think
they
that.
all know.
Okay,
they all know.
So, what you're describing is. For me, okay, not too long ago, the movie Sound of Freedom came out, right? That really put a spotlight on this whole sex trafficking and things that happen with the border, but just some of the nightmares that come with that. That he didn't even focus so much just on border crossings. It focused just on more the sex trafficking, which those two go hand in hand.
Absolutely.
So knowing this, going down there, you're seeing this stuff firsthand now. You're seeing the suffering. You're literally watching people die before your eyes. Why leave the comfort of your own home? Why leave the safe, warm community of Peru, Illinois to go do that?
Because if we don't do it, who's going to do it? Right? If everything that I've done in this life, God has set me up to do what I'm doing today. Whether it was being a firefighter, being an alderman in the city of Peru, running for mayor, everything happens for a reason. Everything that we do in our life is happening for a reason to set up to where we need to be. If we, there are many times, as you may know, when you try to take your own path in life, things may not work out until you align yourself with God and you pray and you ask for wisdom and you go and have that personal relationship with Christ. That's when you're going to get sent down the right direction, right? So that's exactly what has happened to me. Everything that I've done, from Operation Promise to working with children from back in 2009, 2010, and so on, to where I am today, it was always about protecting the children. I also had another organization called Operation Bully Proof, getting into the schools and talking to children about bullying.
Yeah.
It's all about protecting our children because the children are basically traffic. You know what trafficking is? If I was to ask you what trafficking is, what would you say to that?
Well, first I'd get nervous because sometimes I just get nervous even if I know. Sure. Even if you say what color is the sky, I'd be like, why?
Okay. Well, most people when they hear the word trafficking, right?
Yeah.
They think of children in Somalia, other third world countries are being trafficked, right, for sex.
Right.
Basically, trafficking is paid child sex. That's what trafficking is. It's raping children. It's raping children for money. Whether those children are in hotels in Chicago, which we'll talk more about, because I've been involved in a lot of that, rescuing children, rescuing young women who are being sold for sex. And it's not against their will. There's no girl that wakes up when she's 12 and 13 years old and says, next year or when I grow up, I want to be a prostitute. I want to sell my body for sex. There's no girls that do that, no boys that do that. They are groomed into a society of maybe an upbringing that they had, maybe a poor household, no structure. Maybe they're being molested by family members. That's a huge thing, right?
Or sold by family members.
Sold by family members.
The tragedy of it is is that not only is it real, it's actually just worse than I think a lot of people can imagine.
It is.
So you're right. When you say trafficking, maybe that's a word that in itself doesn't really shine the light on how terrible what trafficking is actually describing. I agree with you. Even watching the movie Sound of Freedom, which actually I waited a while to watch that, not because I didn't want to watch it, because I have a heart to watch that, and I do care too. But I have a daughter too, man, and watching stuff like that is super difficult. When I did watch it, I felt also like probably how you said when you watched that episode or that thing on Fox News or whatever that really got you motivated in the beginning. It was the same thing, man. I saw a lot of people actually responding like, I want to do something. I want to get involved. That being said, I also saw just like people dogging it and kind of going after it. Of course, some of it's politics. Sometimes people just, sometimes politics play a part in the people's perception of what you're doing. Thus, what it sounds like you're describing sounds like great. It sounds like awesome. But yet, I bet you, just for perspective, that there's been pushback even on that. And it's hard to imagine, right? But is there things where you get called like racist or any of that stuff?
Absolutely. So there are some left-wing media. There's an agenda out there to paint us as racists, vigilantes. We're far from racist. In fact, our group, our organization, we have men, we have women. I prefer. There's a lot of women out there that they're boots on the ground, and they're just as tough as some of the toughest men that I know. Every nationality you can think of, we have a part of our organization. We're not vigilantes. We do everything by the law. That's why everything's recorded. That's why we have body cameras and everything that we do. We are by the book. We are by the law. We don't operate outside of the law. So how can we be vigilantes if we're operating within the line and the rules and of the laws of today? So they can say what they want. There are several media organizations out there. I have a couple of them that were actually trying to get embedded with us, right? So we'll take down. We've had a journalist from the LA Times come down to the border with us. We've had, let's see, there's several of them that we have taken down with us. There are.
I saw Newsweek interviewed you guys. Did they go? Did they also want to go down or?
Newsweek? No, I don't think we've had Newsweek down there with us. But next month, I don't know if you ever heard of the show Trafficked from National Geographic. She's a journalist she has a program called Trafficked. She's coming down. Her producers are coming down to the border with us next month in June. So, but there are some out there that want to paint a different narrative. That's why we are so selective on who we do interviews with, because they want to paint to their leftist narrative.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you coming on.
Oh, absolutely. and so I know, you were recommended to me. Somebody had mentioned you, and I had checked out some of your, podcasts, and you are a man of God, and I'm like, I'm gonna go ahead and go for this because I have, you feel it in the spirit, right?
Yeah, you gotta be led.
You have discernment.
You gotta be led.
We go off of wisdom and discernment.
Yeah,
so
and there's a lot of lacking of discernment these days too, though.
Absolutely.
But that's another story.
Sure.
But okay, so I appreciate you kind of explaining some of this. Here's my thoughts too, though, and I'm just curious because a lot of what's going on in the South right now on the border is actually making its way up to here.
Absolutely.
Like I go to Chicago all the time for multiple reasons, almost 3 times a week. And there was time periods where I was up in the Chicago area and I was like, what is going on? Like clearly there was migrant stations and stuff like that in front of the police station. It was like overrun camps, all of that. And I was like, holy smokes, this is here. It's already here. It's not just down south. It's here. With that being said, there's a lot even still where I can't imagine how much that trafficking continues, even not just down south. Because people, yes, crossing the border, there's coyotes, there's cartel, there's all the things that you're imagining for the crossing part. The scary part, too, is that once they get over here, they're not safe. It's not like all of a sudden they're like, oh, now they're in a safe space. We brought them to Chicago. Now they're safe. From what I've been reading and understanding, it's actually they're delivering them to, organizations that are known.
That's right.
Sex trafficking organizations. They're bringing them to Chicago for the more sex trafficking.
Absolutely.
And they're not, and they can't even vet them properly.
That's
from
right.
my understanding,
You're
like
correct.
authorities and law enforcement, like.
Absolutely.
And so they might even knowingly know, like, I'm handing this person over because I have to this person.
That's right.
Who is suspect of being a sex trafficker, and they're doing it. That's
right.
not even question. This is just like out. This isn't me being. This isn't circumstantial evidence. This is evidence. This is what's happening. So that being said, it's way closer than people even realize. It's actually right here in Chicago. Is because you guys are based out of Chicago. Are you guys doing anything technically in the Chicago area too?
Yes.
Okay.
So as far as my background, I'm also a truck driver. Mm-hmm. So I'm on Cicero Avenue daily. Every day I'm on the south side of Chicago and on the west side. So I've been seeing a lot of what's going down there as I'm traveling through. And I'm traveling through there anywhere between 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. Mm-hmm. Some mornings, and other times it's 9, 10 o'clock in the morning. So I'm starting to see a lot more of the migrant camps. I'm starting to see a lot more young girls that are out there on Cicero Avenue and other areas throughout the city that are being trafficked. There's no doubt in my mind, but of course I'm in a whole different capacity at that time, so I can't just jump out of my truck and see what's going on. But yes, there's a lot of that going on, and even though I'm out of Peru and it's a Chicago chapter, I'm taking care of business in our own local communities, which we can get into. I just rescued a girl from our area.
Really? Like South County?
She's from actually Bureau County.
Gotcha.
So if you want me to get into that now, I can.
Yeah, go for it.
So I had a phone call from another female who was trafficked when she was 17, and I'm working with her right now, and we can get into the whole Child Protective Services and Easter Seals that are very corrupt. Not all of them, but many of them are. In my opinion, from what I've seen, what they're doing with this mother who was trafficked when she was 17, we're fighting with her and making a stand to get her children back, because she is now 24, 25 years old. And what she's going through to get her children back and what their foster care system is doing to her is wrong. It's corrupt. We can talk more about that. So she called me and said that, and she is from the Chicago area.
Yeah.
She says she has, her husband has a friend that he just got a call from. She's being trafficked in Georgia. She needs out. Is there anything you can do to help? So, of course, you can't just jump in your car and head down. I need facts. I need details.
Yeah,
I need to know what's going on. I need. This was like on a Tuesday. So I said, is there any way that I could speak to her? So she ended up having her husband get a hold of her through Messenger, and she was able to communicate. So she's in a house down in Georgia with a bunch of pimps, gangsters, and they are basically trafficking her. She sent pictures of her all beat up. She sent pictures. I mean, this girl, when I got to her, she was like 95 pounds. She's 23 years old, and she just, it was bad what she was going through. So I said, I need to find a way to connect with her. I need to, before I can help, I need details.
Right.
Because I can't just take a 17-hour trip down to Georgia and rescue somebody if she's not going to be there when I get there.
Right.
So the plan was, I was able to text her. She wasn't being held captive in this house. Basically, what happened was, she went down to Georgia with a friend. This is how a lot of this stuff happens.
Yeah.
The friend and her sister got into a fight, so the sister kicked them both out. They went to the other girl's boyfriend's house, which are gangbangers, and they were there for like a month, right? So they start grooming them. They start trafficking them for sex, for drugs, and then it started getting bad to where everywhere she was going, they'd have to be there with her. She could have her phone, but she wasn't allowed to make phone calls and stuff like that. She was able to text. So I have burner lines, of course. I don't use my own cell phone.
Yeah.
And I contacted her. I said, can you talk? And she said, I can text, but I can't talk. Okay. I said, okay, make sure you delete these messages. Tell me what's going on. She gave me full details of what they're doing. I said, is there any way you can get out of the home? She says, I can. It's going to be about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. I can leave here, but I have no place to go. I have no friends, no relatives, and nothing here. She says, but there is one location I could get to, but I can't be there very long. And so I could tell that she was anxious to get out of there. She was scared. She was afraid. She was had a lot of anxiety. And she kept contacting me. Can you please come and get me? Is there a way you can help me? So at that point, this was on a Tuesday. I went in the wall. I don't want to say my company, so I drive for it. But I said, I went in and I said, I have something going on. I need to have a couple of days off work.
Yeah.
And they granted it to me because, Truckers Against Trafficking, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah. There's kind of a
yeah. So it's tied in. So there's no way that they could tell me, no, you can't do this. When we support that. And so they gave me a couple of days off work, and I rented a car. And I took a couple of my team members, and actually it was just one that could actually make it last minute like that, because they got to take off work too, right?
Yeah.
So we loaded up, rented a car from the car rental place, and we jetted down to Georgia. It was a 17-hour trip. I said, meet me at this location that you're telling me about, and you're going to meet me there at 8 o'clock in the morning on Friday morning. And I said, meet us there, 4 a.m., and we'll get you. So we were in communication for that, and it was a lot of fast action, right? Normally I wouldn't do anything this quick, but I felt that this is something, renting a car and going 17 hours and maybe her changing her mind or something else happening is a crapshoot, right? It's a gamble to take, but I'm willing to do it. I felt good in the spirit about it.
Yeah.
There was no, my team member that I took with me kept saying, "Are you sure she's going to be there? Are you sure we're doing the right? Is this okay to do? Is you sure everything's in order?" I said, "I've got this. I feel comfortable. There's no question in my mind. We're going to be okay." So we get down to Georgia, 17-hour trip. I'm in communication with her with her phone. We get there. She's there. We get her into a car. And, of course, we have procedures, which I can't get into, and operations that we do once we get her. And we get down the road, make sure we're not being followed. We take her phone and we put off location services. We have different things that we do with her phone so she can't be tracked. And then, we went through, make sure that she wasn't carrying any drugs or anything like that.
Yeah.
So there's a process. So we were able to pull that. It was a very successful operation. And it was a very dangerous operation, especially for her. So we were able to get her back. And I think the whole entire, it was like within 36 hours, we had her back home.
Wow. And that was just recently?
That was just 2 weeks ago.
Wow. Praise God.
2 weeks ago.
Holy smokes.
And she's doing better. She's back with her kids. She went to the hospital, got checked out. She, like I said, she wasn't eating. They weren't feeding her. She was skinny down to nothing. Yeah. And dehydrated, loss of iron, and all that stuff. So, that was a success.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. I think that's
glad that happened.
And again, you said it earlier. Like, if you're not going to do it, who's going to do it?
That's right.
I know. I asked you like, what makes you want to do this? I mean, I think I know. I get it. I know what makes you want to do this.
People say to me, "Oh man, what you're doing is great." It's not me. I'm just a vessel.
Yep.
God, I'm doing it. This is the hands and feet of Christ, right?
You're willing to do this stuff.
Just like Mary Magdalene, right? The Lord came to her, the Spirit came to her, an angel came to her and said, "You're going to have a son," right? Yeah. She had no say so in the matter. She was faithful to Christ, right? She was faithful to Christ.
Yes.
She did it. I'm faithful to Christ. I'm going to do what He wants me to do. What He needs me to do, I'm here to do. So it's not what Rodney Perez is doing. It's not the gratitude that I want. It's all the glory goes to God.
Amen.
Right? All the glory goes to Christ.
So speaking, then time hop with me then, because here you are now. This is who you are now, a man of God. How did you become a man of God? How did you come to Jesus?
Oh, that's easy. So what happened was back in I was brought up Catholic.
Okay.
In 1982, 83, we had a faith-based church come in. Back then, I remember, because it was back in the 80s, and everybody's saying, "Oh my God, these holy rollers are coming into town!" Right? Back in the 80s, they didn't have any faith. It was pretty much strong Catholic area, and so they came in. My older brother started going to church, and he got us saved. Right? We accepted Christ. But I accepted Christ back in the 80s. My brother was going to church. I started going to church. And, of course, over the years, you backslide. Yeah. You're not right in line. You're kind of doing your own thing.
It's a sanctification process.
Yeah, absolutely. Today, my brother's a pastor.
Yeah, wow.
Of Abundant Life Fellowship in LaSalle.
Very cool.
And I do security, and I'm an usher there.
Yeah.
So I'm very obedient. And I'd say within the last probably 5 years is when I've, totally given, it's like I have a sauna at home, and that's my worship place. I go into my sauna and I spend 40 minutes in there just praise and worship and praying to the Lord.
Yeah.
And that's where I get all of my wisdom, discernment,
Gotcha.
and my relationship
Your prayer
with Christ
closet.
takes place. My prayer closet when I'm sweating.
Just so happens, yeah. I feel like everyone's is a little different. Some people's it's a shower. Some people it's the car. So because for me it's all of them. Except I don't have a sauna. I'm not that bougie. But I'm one day I'll start focusing on my health more. So you did it young. You came to Christ. You had a backsliding like most of us.
Absolutely.
But you said within the last 5 years was when you kind of got sold. Like you're on fire now. It's you've known God. You've been going through the process. I feel like this is actually a lot of people's story right now. I really do. I feel like a lot of people I'm talking to, it's exactly what you just described. Known God, did this within the last 5 years. So I guess with all of this stuff that's going on in the world, times do seem kind of prophetic. We have politics the way that they are, society the way that it is, culture the way that it is, and I feel like I'm seeing a lot of people within the last 5 years, pretty much or more. It's a flex between in there of people just getting on fire for God, like just coming back to Him stronger than ever. I feel like there's people watching this right now who are going, that's me too. I've known God. I've been saved. I've this, and this. Here's my story. But within the last several years, I've just been more and more on fire, like dedicated, willing to put my selfish desires and whatever aside and really follow Christ, really surrender for the first time. Like, absolutely. Where you're like, I love Jesus. I have faith, but you didn't really surrender your life.
Absolutely.
He's your Lord, but He's not Lord of your life. You know what I mean? You're not living for Him. You're not living obedient. But now something happened within that. Do you think it was just everything I just described? Was
There's no question about it. It seems like with this whole LGBTQ, whatever you want, whatever it's being called today, with that movement, with today in society, we're starting to see society and even government taking what is good and making it evil,
right?
Making it appear as though it's evil, and what is evil good, and it just there's just so much going on. What they're doing in our schools with our children, the transgender movement, all of that. Hands and feet of Christ always, right? I have friends that are gay.
Yeah.
I love my friends. I love them. I'm not judgmental against them. That's on them. That's between them and God, right? But at the same time, I pray for them. I want them to get in line with Christ.
Yeah.
But it's the spirit. It's the spirit that we battle, right? So if you and I had a problem with each other, it's not you and I. We're fighting the principalities of the darkness, right? It's the spiritual world.
We don't wrestle against flesh and blood.
That's right. Absolutely.
So, I do see your point too on like what you're saying, but I have a question, like when it comes to like when LGBT, like the gay stuff, gay marriage and all that, like there wasn't actually a lot of pushback from the Christian community. It was actually pretty like docile. I don't think things really started picking up until like, I think what got us on our radar is COVID and having our kids homeschooled, and then a lot of stuff was being revealed that like parents were finally learning for the first time what their kids were learning, because they're actually looking for the first time probably. And that was a big eye-opener for a lot of people and parents. It doesn't matter where you fell on the spectrum of politics. It was just kind of like, what? There was a lot of that going on there. And it didn't matter if you were left or right. It was just, I don't want my kid learning about that stuff. So there was an outcry there. And then it was a push with a lot. It started off, I think, kind of like the drag.
Yep.
What is it? Story time in the libraries. Yes. And so that was it. And the trans push and stuff. This is where we started to see a swing back, where I felt like, again, Christians were pretty like, gay marriage, we disagree. We disagree, but it wasn't like this big protesty pushback. I feel like now, for the first time, we're starting to see like Christians that are willing to step up, not because they want to, but because maybe there's a need to, and that goes back to what you said earlier. If I don't do it, who's going to do it?
That's right.
And exactly right. If everybody was doing it, you could say you're right. I'd stay home and I'd stay in Peru and I wouldn't have to do it because everybody was doing it. The problem is not a lot of people are doing it. But I am seeing an increase. Even like Sound of Freedom, that's a mainstream movie that they tried to push down. You know what I mean? But Angel Studios picked it up because Disney didn't want it or whatever, and they owned it and they were holding on to it for years. But truth seems to be like coming out too. People's faith is getting increased. The border crisis is finally getting attention. Doesn't matter again what political party, it's starting to blur. Like it used to just be like a left-right thing. We say Republicans are like, go home.
Right.
and then what is the left? The left is come on over. It's a party. And I don't think it's either of those. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's no longer a political thing. It's real. People are realizing there's an actual crisis. It's not just immigration and jobs and votes that are up at risk here. I think what really got people's attention was the thing that you're involving yourself in. It was the violence towards children.
Yep.
It was the
fentanyl.
Yes. So even again, the library stuff with kids, it was the school stuff with the kids, it was the trans with the kids, it's now the sex trafficking with the kids. Right. And I thank God that people are finally like taking this more seriously. But I do think it's the kids that were finally where we had enough, where Christians finally said, okay, enough. Like now they're stepping up, whether I'm seeing more Christians step into political positions, stepping up into like things that you're doing, community service. I'm seeing more Christians being courageous.
That's right.
Do you feel like so since you guys said you started like 10 years ago? The Patriots.
Yeah, Sam Hall started that 10 years ago.
How long have you been a part of it?
Okay, so it's been about 2.5 years now.
2.5 years.
That I've been with Patriots.
So about like April or so.
Yeah, it's been about 2.5 years ago.
Yeah, I don't really want to do the math.
Okay, so before Patriots for America, I was part of a. It wasn't Patriots.
The bully thing you talked about.
Yeah, no, but I actually trained with a group of men from Illinois, and we were basically. The other thing that the narrative is 3%ers, right? They made it sound like the 3%ers. I don't know if you ever heard of that. But I was part of a militia. But what happened was, and this was back in 2018 and 19, there were a lot of organizations out there, a lot of different patriot groups that were training, right? That were in case the crap ever hit the fan.
Yeah.
But what happened was there were some patriots out there and militias out there that were training, like we were talking about earlier, to take on government. And that's never what I have ever intended. What I was training for is what has happened in 2020 and after George Floyd and during COVID is when we started having our communities attacked by Antifa.
It is scary. It got scary here. Like I remember when that stuff was going down. Friends of mine were in the Chicago area and all that, and they were live streaming. I was watching their live streams, which are gone now forever, but I saw live the things that were going down, that if I would have been smart and I screen recorded, because people probably wouldn't believe some of the stuff I was seeing. The crime and violence was real. And it was like Chicago-y, right? But then it started coming down.
Yep.
It started bleeding down. It started coming down 80, started coming down even closer to us. And then we heard, there was going to be and I remember there was real concern, and nothing broke off. Like nothing happened in our like Streeter or Ottawa or I don't even think Peru. Now there were some parades or there were some marches, but nothing, no looting, none of that stuff that happened. But I remember there was a genuine concern for it, even in the communities around here when they were like, "Oh, there's going to be a march," and people were like a little concerned, not because of prejudice or racism, but just because of the pattern that we had been seeing that was already bleeding its way down, and a lot of the things that they were saying, like why they were justifying and saying like this is okay that we're looting in this because this is retribution. And that stuff scares me. That's a type of anarchy.
There were a lot of attacks on police officers too.
Yeah,
back then.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably really where you.
And that's what we were doing. I've been to Kentucky. I've been to Pennsylvania, to the Capitol. During all this is when Antifa and them were going to the state capitals and really trying to. Just cause chaos. And there was lack of security, lack of police force, right? Police officers were being attacked. So we would go there and basically do what happened in Kenosha, right?
Mm-hmm. Crazy.
There was just so much going on there. And so throughout, from Minnesota to Wisconsin, Illinois, Kentucky, Pennsylvania, and our country was becoming under attack.
Yeah, it was scary there for a while. And if I'm being honest, I'm not nervous. I feel like I've been through it. Like, like you've been through a divorce. So if you get divorced again, it's not so bad the second time. Well, we went through this, and now there's a lot of talk of what's coming down the line politically. Mm-hmm. Like there could be a need. There already is a need more than ever for what you're doing down on the border, because what's happening down on the border is at all-time record-breaking chaos.
Yes.
Let's be true. And not just that, what's coming down politically again, now that colleges are getting out, they're getting out like right now. Yep. So now where are all those college kids going to go? Where are they going to go and put all that energy that they've been building up, you know what I mean, with their
Palestine.
Yeah, bro. Like, so where's that all going? Where's the politics going? There could be a need again for more militias and stuff like that. And it's scary because everyone's talking. They're saying the Civil War, bro. They're saying the Civil War. I'm not a fear guy. I'm all for the possibility of it. And prepare in my own ways and stuff like that. And I stay very informed. But I also see good and how people come together, especially small communities, just as much as, remember how we said all that was coming down and we were seeing it, and there was a march like that was happening in Streeter and Peru and stuff like that. But the thing is those small towns came together. Like the cities, nah, dude, those got crazy. Yep. But small towns got closer. Small towns got politics divided because it didn't matter. It was the mask and all that stuff. The vaccine started dividing. I call that politics. Mm-hmm. Some people might not call that politics. I feel like that whole thing was politics. Yep. So, but that started causing division. Friends no longer being friends because of vaccination status. Yep. It was crazy. But I did see like a lot of people coming together. I feel like because we all went through this, like we all have learned, like going through a divorce, coping mechanisms.
Sure, absolutely.
So I feel like I tend to think if we go down this route again, unless something black swanny, you know what I mean? Like unless some like event happens that's just so like 9/11 or whatever. I am hitting all the algorithms wrong on this. Everything we're saying right now, we're saying all the words, and the algorithm's like, YouTube's gonna dump this. Shoot, I shouldn't even said their name, but so I ADD. I do this. I really do this. I did this on the last episode. I should tell my guests like, hey, pay attention to what I'm saying because I'm gonna need you later. I'm gonna need you to tell me what I was talking about. Like that's important.
I'm in the same boat, brother, because I got the same thing. So we're
and there's so many lights around and everything. It's like ADD. Okay, so sorry, everyone. Back to the serious stuff. But yes, there's a lot going on. I tend to think we've learned some coping mechanisms that if this stuff starts popping off, that people are going to actually hopefully respond a lot better. I feel like people are going to be more prepared. People are going to be more sane. That's my thoughts. I feel like people are going to have more diplomatic approaches to a lot of what's going on. I could be wrong. I could be totally wrong. There's a lot of people that think I'm wrong. There's a lot of people that things are going to pop off in crazy, crazy ways. No matter what happens. It doesn't matter what happens. Who wins, who doesn't win, what's going on. There's people that are just convinced we're headed towards.
But you know what's great about all that, though?
What?
In the end, God wins.
Oh, yeah, man, dude. The thing is he already has victory.
Yes.
We're already walking in victory. We just need to operate in that victory when it comes to our faith and how we do things. That's why I said I'm not worried. That's why I said I'm not anxious. That's why I genuinely am hopeful. Because even if things go weird, the border, locally, whatever, I am convinced that not only is God sovereign over everything, and not only do we already walk in victory over everything, but that we are living in times where we are going to see God moving in mighty ways. The darker it gets, the more the light shines brighter. And I think days are getting darker. I do believe that, bro. I think that's in a lot of ways things that were called good, or evil's getting eviler.
Yes.
Darker is getting darker.
Yes.
And that's why I said you're even seeing more Christians stepping up, even a lot of people having to get off the fence, stop being so lukewarm, because there's kind of this calling of saying, like, I can't live on the fence of this anymore. Society doesn't allow it to be so easy. And you either got to make a choice. Are you going to be a man of God?
That's right.
And that is going to require you to speak against culture right now.
Yep.
Because culture is not God. Culture is not God orientated. Culture is anti-God right
That's
now.
right.
And but I am seeing in the Christian communities, again, it's just kind of like the gray's going away. You're getting more black and white. I feel like maybe that's my observation. This could be anecdotal, but I do feel like the gray is going away of Christianity and where you stand, and you're either getting more like, I'm either for it or no, I'm not really for it. I believe in God and that's it. Like, or you're pursuing it and you're living it and you want to know, how can I put my faith in action? What can I do? Like, I want my faith in action. I don't want it just to be a word that I say I have. And I think that's where a lot of people are getting. So I actually appreciate like what you're doing and stuff like that. Now, because I don't want to just jump past you being like, I was raised Catholic and then came to Jesus, stuff like that. How old were you? You said 17, 18. You were a teenager.
Yeah, I was a teenager. I think I was probably 18
so
years old at the time.
That's a long gap. I want to point that out. That's you coming to God 17, but only within the past 5 years did you really get set on fire. So there was this walk there where you've known God for a very long time and went through probably a whole roller coaster of trials and tribulations with him.
Absolutely.
Learning this. But I want to point that out because I don't want anyone to be discouraged because they're not getting it right or anything like that. You're a grandpa now. You know what I'm saying? Yep. Like, you went from teenager to grandpa. And I'm not trying to make you I'm not trying to make you feel old. You look good, bro. You look good. You got plenty of sun. No. So I just want to point that out. Like, I don't want people to be discouraged that they think they got to get it all right away, because I see so much of that too. Like, baby Christians, if you're watching this right now, I am so sorry for the pressure of us Christians that we put on you guys for when you come to Christ, that there's this expectation of perfection.
No.
I am sorry for that. And let my testimony and your testimony be a witness of that. I too had to do my prodigal son stuff. I too was raised in the church, and then lived in the world while knowing God, you know what I mean? And not really at all walking with him, although he walked with me. But now, yes, there has been a fire. I think it started for me, like, there was this seed of faith started from Mustard Seed Ministries. Mustard Seed Ministries was something that was my mom's vision because she wrote like a children's book. Long story short, I, of my own money and planned a mission trip to go to the Philippines and stuff like that. And I got invited there. I was preaching at different church. I did the internationally was like meeting all these different pastors. This is where I got ordained, essentially. It'd be non-denominational, but ordained right there. And when I came back from doing all of that, like, preaching and watching like true poverty,
yes,
not like poverty
absolutely.
like we see in Chicago, even like I'm describing. Let me be clear. That stuff is terrible that we're seeing up in Chicago and down at the border. But like some of these places, that's just the life, dude.
That's right.
Like here's your bucket with water.
That's right.
For your toilet.
Little
like,
bowl
that's
of
it. Yeah.
oats.
Toilet paper. What's that?
That's right.
Yeah. Rice every day. Not like how we're like, oh, we're gonna like.
Yep.
Just real poverty, man. Like electricity, all of it, like clothes. It's just, I saw it, and their perseverance was insane. For me, came back. That was 2015. It was before like some of all this crazy politics started getting, but I was already on that coming back to Jesus. Mostly that happened when my daughter was born. That was the real come back to Jesus moment, by the way. So, because I was totally backslidden. Like, yeah, I'm a Christian, and if my deeds were put onto a screen, oh my gosh, it'd be terrible. But had my daughter coming back to Jesus moment, got church hurt a little bit. And as for me in the church, we're out of the building now. We're not I was church hurt, so I was just kind of like, everywhere I go is church. And then got involved in some apologetics ministries and stuff like that with some really great people, realized that I actually had bitterness and that church hurt was real and that I am called to be in a local church, and started doing that, ministry building up, focusing more on creating content, and boom, the political stuff and life is going on, and I just feel more and more called to use the things that God, like even like the band stuff, right? Like, so I was in a band. That's part of that prodigal stuff, like prodigal son. But all of that I learned, front man, microphone, tech, even all of this. This is an XLR cable. How do I know this is an XLR cable? Because of the band stuff. You know what I mean? Like, all of this knowledge that I learned in the world that God has now been able to take and let me pour right back into the ministry. And so I'm so grateful for that, for an opportunity to do that. And what I've learned is I'm not alone in my community doing this. I'm learning as more and more this podcast, bringing people on. There are people literally that you don't know. Dude, you're in Peru. Like, I had no idea. We had our own personal, Sound of Freedom, like that you had our own guy that was living so close that's involved in some of this terrible things that you feel is so disconnected to because you're like, oh, that's not here, but it is here. And we have people here also that are involved, and I'm finding more and more seeds of faith all over our community. And man, when I found out, because when I found out what you're involved in, I just knew how crazy that stuff really is. And I really was like, man, I really hope I can get this guy on the podcast, because I know that people got busy schedules. But let me ask you, so with everything going on, politics and what could happen and all of that stuff like that, and you just did this thing 2 weeks ago too, like where you guys just had this big mission, which congratulations again, praise God on that. Is this just the goal, like where you want to take more of this stuff on? Are you trying to grow the militia right now? Or?
Okay, so there's really no growing. There are literally 5 of us in the Chicago chapter. Could I easily pull in 100, 200 people who say, yeah, I want to do
help.
it.
Yeah.
It's not like that, right? We have even Patriots for America out of Texas, right? Our main chapter, we probably have 20, 25 of us, right? Because we have a very strong vetting process. We have individuals who come from all walks of life, but we can't just let anybody in, because we don't need somebody going rogue down at the border and shooting, shooting a cartel member or something. You got to be very level-headed. So it's not about quantity; it's about the quality of the individual in our organization. So, do we want to grow it? I'll take on whoever is capable of being able to take on the job. But we have other jobs too, right? I have a full-time job. I do this. Would I love to leave my full-time job? Absolutely. I think there's enough going on right now. There are over 90,000 children right now that are unaccounted for that are coming across the border over the last 2.5 years. 90,000 who have come across that government can't account for. They don't know where they went because there's no vetting process. No sponsors that are background checked are vetted, so these children are being loosened.
Or they just give them a number, and they're like, here's a number, and then they call it, and nobody picks up. That's
so we have them in
crazy,
Chicago, we have them in New York, we have them in California. Mad. The trafficking is huge. So when we talked a little bit about militia and what could come down the pike with a civil war and all that, that is far from my main goal, and my main vision are the children, protecting and saving the children. That's my calling from Christ. And that's the avenue that I'm staying on. I'm not going to veer off if there's another breakout and protesters are coming to Chicago and doing. That's not me anymore. That's God has my calling. That was a season for me. Yeah, and that's all it was.
Gotcha. And that's I'm thank you for shining light on that, actually, because I'm sure people wonder if it just moves around based off of what's going on. So essentially, you have found your calling.
Absolutely,
you have found your calling. How? And do you think that when did it happen where you go, this is it? Because I know that you wanted to do it. You watched the show, Fox News, you wanted to do it. You went down there, you were doing it. There still had to be a moment where, like, this is real life, this is my calling. Was it?
I've seen I've watched a lot of YouTube. I watched a lot of victims, young girls, women, boys being abused by family members, being trafficked out within the community. We have online predators that are going after children.
Yeah.
It's such a wide variety of attacks against our children. And there's not enough law enforcement out there. I'll give you an example, like the girl that we just went to go get down in Georgia.
Yeah.
Law enforcement, she's 23 years old. They're not going to touch it.
Yeah,
right?
she's an adult.
Yeah, she's a runaway. She's an adult. She, can do her own thing. There's no urgency to it. The only way the only way that she would have been able to get saved is by people like organizations like Patriots for America Militia making and putting boots on the ground to go take those actions, because who knows when law enforcement would have been able, because they would have got into this whole investigation.
There's a lot of red tape.
Even with these runaways, we see like the missing persons we see the posters, right?
All right.
What happens in a lot of these cases is the little girl or the little boy runs away from home. The parents report it. All of a sudden there's a bulletin out there, a missing child, and everybody's, getting a hold of the parent, getting a hold of the family members. That nobody knows the real story why that child is missing. There's a good chance that child was being raped and molested by a family member within the house, a stepdad, a boyfriend, or whoever, even the mother trafficking the daughter. There's a case right now that I'm in the process of working on in Chicago where a 14-year-old girl is being trafficked by the mother for money and for drugs. So there's a lot of that going on. So when these children run away from home,
it's not always running away from a good home.
It's not always running away. It's not like, we want to get this little boy or this little girl back home to her family.
Right.
Her family are the ones who are
a part of the problem.
Yep, absolutely. So this is a big process. So what happened was, I'm like, how do I learn more about this? You can't just say, I want to go save children. You've got to know what to do. You've got to learn it. So there's an organization called ARC. It's the Association of the Recovery of Children. And Bazel Baz is, he's a former CIA agent. He's been saving children from other countries for years, since like the 70s. And the CIA was holding him. He saved a lot of children as a CIA agent, right? Overseas. There was so much red tape that he ended up getting out of it and starting his own organization called ARC. If you Google ARC, you'll be able to see all kinds of YouTube videos.
ARK?
ARC.
ARC, okay.
Okay, so he has training courses. So I went on my own dime to Indiana a month ago, and to learn. It was 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, and it was very extensive. A lot of information, a lot of great intel, information, training. That all the process and all the procedures that I took down in Georgia, thank God I took that class, because everything I learned from them about what to do when you pick them up, what you look for.
Turning off the notifications.
Like,
even when you said it, I was like...
There's Faraday bags, okay?
Yeah, throw that phone in the Faraday bag.
We shut it off, put it in a Faraday bag. And, I mean, I never would have known any of this.
When you said it on the podcast, I was just thinking, oh, that's really smart. I was like, I wonder if I would have thought of to do that, because it also revealed something else, that there's way more going into it than just the idea of I'm just pulling up, hey, jump in the car and driving away. There's a lot of preparation. There's a lot of, like you're saying, like burner phones, delete the text, do here, meet here, like Faraday bags now. Like, so there's way more going on.
We got her about 5 miles down the road, check and make sure we weren't being followed, made different turns. We got her out. And we laid down the rules and what's going to take place from here. I said, for one thing, what we really need to know from you, because we have guns in the trunk, we have all kinds of ammunition and guns in here. If you have any drugs at all, whether they're prescription drugs, whether it's pot, whether it's coke, whether it's crystal, whether it's fentanyl, whatever it is, if we get pulled over on the way back to Illinois, we're all going to jail. We need to know if you have anything on you at all. And she did pull out. She had some weed.
Thankfully, she's honest.
Not a big deal, but we were able to dump it out. But so there's procedures you got to take for our safety, for her safety, for
another thing, just one more thing where you got to like check off the box to make sure.
That's right.
Because it's not. You're right. It's not just the safety; it's everybody's safety.
That's right. Yeah.
And it's way more dangerous than I think people realize. And so it makes me feel like, are you just ex-military? Or are you just built like that?
No, I'm not. No,
it's the firefighter and all that stuff. Yeah, because you kind of have that. There's a personality that goes with like firefighters or soldiers and stuff like that, and it's got to be this sacrificial like you're saying, like it's the kids, it's the mission, like it's not everyone's like that, man. Not everyone is willing to be a man of action and literally put yourself in harm's way. You're a husband, you're a father. How does that play? Like, are they concerned and like, because I know there's got to be worries.
I tell you what, my oldest son is 40 years old. My other son is 30. I have 5 grandchildren and a wonderful wife who supports me. I mean, could you imagine? So here's exactly what happened. When I got the phone call, I was on the road about the girl in Georgia.
Yeah.
I called my wife and says, I have to go to Georgia. She says, huh? I said, I have to go to Georgia. There's a trafficking case. I need to get there by Friday morning. And I said to her, what are your thoughts? She goes, do I need any? She's like, do I have a say? So you have to have a very supportive family. And my wife is very supportive. My children are very supportive. And they're like, they know that I'm the hands and feet of Christ, that we are as a group. My family, my wife's born again. She's a Christian. My boys are. My entire family are Christians.
What else can you ask for?
You know, as long as we have that unity, and you know, we pray. Everything that we do on our missions, when we go down to the border, we get in a group and pray. We're all Christians. We don't do anything without Christ, because the moment, and that's the other thing too, is within our organization, we can't bring anybody in who is dabbling in evil, sin. That's not a Christian. Because
that's part of the vetting process.
It's part of the vetting process. Because when you get to the border and you're dealing with evil, you're dealing with cartels. I mean, we have cartels that we're face to face with at times, and right across the river, things can go bad, and our entire mission can go down if somebody pops off one of the rifles or a sidearm, get into a fight, and it's not justified. Everything has to be justified. Every action that we take is through Christ. Everything that we do is through Him. So,
I think that's probably one of the most important things about your vetting process. When people talk about being equally yoked, they're not just talking about marriage. If you actually read in Scripture what it talks about being equally yoked, it's talking about people that you get into business relationships with as well. If you're going to do something that's this dangerous, you have to be equally yoked with these people. That's right. That's my belief. Yes, you're going to have a diversity of people and maybe even denominations and theology and whatever and all of it, but you're going to unify in Christ.
That's right. Absolutely.
And I think that's the part where you're probably going to find you're going to get the most success. I've seen when you put God first in anything, whether it is a marriage, whether it is work, when you put God first, seeking first the kingdom of God, the rest falls into place.
Oh, absolutely.
The rest falls into place. And that's why even when I was doing some of my research, I started to realize, I was like, wow, this is super cool. I saw the Newsweek article and stuff like that covered your organization. And I did read, his name's Sam, right?
Yes.
I saw Sam and the things that he went through in his leg and all of that. And I was just like, man, this is really cool. I'm really actually... It makes me proud. It makes me proud of people, like proud of you. And I don't even know you, man, but it just makes me like proud to be around this community, because I see so many veterans. We have a lot of veterans in this community. In fact, the veteran in this town, there's a huge veteran memorial and stuff like that. It's real popular. And they do the Freedom Run and all that, and all the motorcycle just like everywhere. It's just like veterans man, it's they got the FBI on the buildings just in case anything breaks out, because you do get a lot of rambunctious people. But I love the love for veterans. I love the love of community that I noticed in these smaller towns, especially around here. And so when I hear people doing like I was so proud, like you're like, oh, he's from Peru. I'm just so proud, dude. You're just close enough in my circle. I just get proud of you. But so aside from all of that, I want people to be able to like kind of like help and support what you're doing too. Is how can people get involved with the militia stuff like that? How can they donate or keep up to date and all of it with what you got going on?
Okay, you can also go to patriotsforamerica militia.com. We have a lot of information on there. If you go to the About on the beginning of the page, it will show our different media interviews and some of the border stuff. We've got some videos on there. We don't have any technicians that monitor our website, so some of it's not really all up to date. But we're doing the best we can on there. But our main goal is to be out in the field. We're not techs or anything like that. So we try to update that as much as we can. We also have a Give Send Go account. I have one under Rodney Perez. It's Patriots for America Militia. You can go to, or you can go to Rodney Perez Fighting Child Sex Trafficking. That will support our local chapter.
Okay.
And that's something new that I just started putting together. This isn't about fundraising, right? This isn't about making money. I don't do this.
Yeah.
I put the money in on my own. If somebody wants to donate $20, $30 to pay for fuel or whatever, food, it cost us. I was going to be going down to Texas in June, right? That was within the next few weeks. I was going to be going down there. Dumping $1,000 into this to me is no big deal, but having a little bit of help is good. The reason I'm not going down this time is I booked a Cubs baseball game with my grandson. Me and my grandson are like this. He's 9 years old. He's into baseball, so we're going to our first Cubs game.
Wow.
So I had to take that. Family's got to come first. Well, God first, right? And then family.
God first, family. Yeah.
So, but yeah, there's a big expense to doing all of this, from car rentals to food to
time off work.
Time off work. Yep. And when I pick this young lady up, we feed her, we give her drinks.
Yeah.
There's
the aftercare.
There's the aftercare. And all that stuff. So, any donation helps is appreciated, but we don't do this for money. I don't get a salary from it. It's all about.
Man, I hear you. Even on this podcast, like I'm doing this podcast not for money. Like, and there's no. I don't ask people for the money usually or anything like that. Now. What I learned is this: what you're doing is so good, but it's so extreme that people can't do that. Not everyone can do that. And so I think people want to give not because you ask or like, oh, I'm doing this for money, or like, I think people would want to give to you because they can't do that. And they're like, I want to give to this. And that's where, look at me, I'm just giving people the benefit of the doubt, but that's genuinely where I feel like that was me. That was my heart. That's my thoughts. I'm like, well, I can't do this. I can't go down there. I don't have the training. I didn't take the class, over there, which would have been fantastic to learn all the cool stuff so I don't get killed doing what I'm doing. But I can certainly give him some money so he
prayer
can,
teams.
Or
prayer is one of the biggest things,
bro.
Right?
Yeah, there you go, right there.
Because the prayer,
donate your prayers.
Donate your prayers. We'll take the prayer. We'll take all the prayer we can
get. I say that all the time too. I was like, if you want to give, but you don't have anything to give, pray.
God provides all
genuinely.
the time. God will always take care of the finances that I need to get.
Yeah, man. Yeah, and so I don't want, I it's such a weird thing too. To when I'm like, how can people donate? Like, I respect that you're preferencing, like, I don't do this for the money, but I just want you to know, like, I wouldn't think that anyways. I would have thought that everything you just described, I'm fully aware none of that is free. Maybe that's just because I have logic. I don't know. Maybe I'm just common sense guy. Maybe some people just think that what you're doing is just like a hobby and it's like you just can do it. I'm like, no. Everything outside of the norm is an expense. Yep. And so I appreciate what you're doing. I do hope people are able to pour into it so you can do things like you just did in Georgia without ever even having to second guess the movement because of finances.
That's right.
I pray that God blesses what you're doing so you can move freely without going, I don't know, we can't afford it. Like, I hope to God that he blesses you guys like that and continues to pour into what you're doing as well. And that if there are other members, I know there's only 5 of you, but if there's strong people, just so that you have more available. Like you said, you went down to Georgia and it was only 2 of you, and there were supposed to be more, but some people backed out. That's another perk of having just a few more members. So I hope that I pray too that God brings more people into your circle, strong people of God, men and women of God, maybe even ex-veterans. Who knows? Bring the veterans, baby, because they got that. Yeah, ex-police officers, the people with the training, basically. They know how to handle themselves under those kind of situations, because those are not your everyday situations. Yep. So I do pray that God does that for you, man. And I really, really respect what you're doing, and it's a terrible, terrible thing. I love that your wife supports you. I love that your family supports you. It's just like in the Sound of Freedom thing. I keep bringing that up because it's I think of it every time we talk about it. But he even said like he wasn't able to do what he did unless his wife supported him.
That's right.
And she gave him like this. He's almost the same thing. You guys had a very similar story there where he's like, I got to do this thing. What are your thoughts? Like, there's this thing. If I don't go, and she's like, why is it even a discussion?
Yep.
Just go, like, do your thing. And to have that kind of support too, man, that is a blessing that I hope God continues to nurture that too with your kids, and maybe they even get involved. Maybe when they get older too, maybe this turns into like a ministry, a family ministry.
Mm-hmm.
I think it already is a family ministry in
Sure.
a way. In a
Yep.
way, it already is, because I'm sure a lot of that bleeds over to even how your relationship with your kids. I can't imagine going down and seeing the stuff that you're seeing with children and not wanting to like go home to your grandchildren and children and just be like, let me hold you, let me love you. How could it not affect your relationship, where you just take everything so much more less for granted?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying this.
True.
I just feel like it's true.
Everything you're saying is right on. You nailed it. And how God works too. Back then, January 6th, right?
Yeah.
So January 6th, I was with a Patriot group, and I had a group going to Washington D.C. on January 6th. I didn't have that full discernment. I didn't have that spirit like, okay, this is great. I feel good about this, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It was my grandson, when I just told you we have that tight bond relationship.
Yeah.
It was his birthday. I think it was like he was turning 5 years old at the time. And I said, hey, Oliver, is it okay if I go and I'll miss your birthday, but I'll make up for it? And he says, no, I really want you here for my birthday.
Wow.
That's all it took.
Saved
and
your life.
Because you know what happened was, I'm not kidding you when I tell you this. I had people from our community that were taking photos from when I was in, because I'd post stuff. I'm transparent. I have nothing to hide. I don't, when I'm in Pennsylvania at the state capitol, there's pictures of me, there. It's not a big deal, right? But they were taking my pictures from when I was at Pennsylvania,
and saying that you were there
saying
then.
that I was in Washington D.C. at this, and I had local radio that was actually saying, if anybody has any more information on this former alderman,
Bro.
one that ran for mayor, give me the information. I had people sending him pictures. I'm like, I've got proof that I was working. I've got a logbook. I've got electronic logs.
But they came hunting.
And you know what?
Got the pitchforks.
Yep. And we've
goodness.
had, Patriots for America. We've had the FBI. We've had the CIA. We've had every we have had every agency investigate us. Come to our doors. Sam Hall has had the FBI, the CIA investigate us. They can investigate us all we want. We are by the law. We are by the book, and we don't do anything outside the law. And all they said basically to Sam is just keep your guns in order and, keep everything registered and doing what you're doing. But they could never find wrongdoing with us, even though the narrative and the individuals out there, like the Southern Poverty Law Center, calling us racists and vigilantes, they can say all they want, but we are who we are.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, you literally we've said every word that we could have said to probably get us in trouble. CIA, FBI. We've said every word.
That's okay. It's
so I just want people to be aware, like, that's the kind of organic and uncensoredness that I want.
I have nothing to hide. Anybody can do it. They can do the background check on me for, I have nothing to hide. They can dig into my Facebook all the way down and hey, I'm legit. I am who I am, and they're not going to find me.
I thank God that you are who you are, and I appreciate you coming on, man. I really do appreciate you. I'm gonna put your information up in the description, so for those of you that are wanting to follow up and look, it'll be in the description. I'll get that from you in a little bit. Let me think. Okay, so I'm going to sign off too. Again, I appreciate you guys. If this podcast actually blessed you, why don't you guys leave a comment? That'll probably fix some of the algorithm issues. Hit like. Definitely share this with somebody that you think would be encouraged by the things that we're doing here at Seed of Faith and in this community. If you think this episode could touch somebody's life, share it with them as well. We appreciate you guys. If you're thinking about, we talked about like finances. If you're thinking about gifting Seed of Faith something or helping participate in Seed of Faith and what we're doing through a gift, I'll throw some details and some links down there too. we could use the help. Of course, I would love it too. We're small but mighty with Christ, and it's with your guys' help that by sharing all of this and making this grow, that we're able to have this kind of community and faith dialogue. So thank you for helping making this flourish. I do really appreciate that for sure. Let me think. Yeah. All right. Well, then I think that's pretty much it. You guys tune in to the next episode if you guys want to see some more heartfelt conversations and how there's different seeds of faith that are in unexpected places all around our communities. And with that in mind, until then, stay blessed and keep the faith alive. Thank you, brother.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Peace.
Whoa.
Excellent. Good job.
That was awesome.